Peace and love. What up, though? What it do? What's popping? What's cracking? What's happening in time 9, time 10? Let's get into it. Let's talk about the loss of the warrior spirit. I keep seeing things repeat itself. Uh, Seems to be generation after generation. I see people falling for the banana in the tailpipe, so to speak, right? By way of people feel as though because they don't watch the mainstream news networks or whatnot, the CBSs, the NBCs, the ABCs, and the 1, 2, 3s, and that it's incapable or it's not possible for them to be bamboozled, right? Because you don't look at CNN and you don't look at Fox. You get your news from the content creators and various so-called scholars or whatnot, if you will, who you trust. You feel as though they're sincere in their presentations, right? And they seem to go against the grain of what's being broadcast again by way of mainstream media, your big news networks. Like I said, it's people who think just because they don't tune in to the NBC and the CBS and the 2020 and the 60 Minutes or you know, those brands that we're familiar with, right? Because we know we've been lied to, right? And then in some cases, it's not exactly a lie. It's just that there's no representation for us and what actually is happening in our communities, in the inner city, even within the entertainment industry, those who create film and music that is uplifting, so to speak. We don't see any of that being broadcast, right? But you can find various artists and um, people who are filmmakers that make films and music that we feel represents us or uplifts us and shows us in a good light. These are things that we don't see again by way of names Warner Brothers, name some big film companies, Universal and things like this and that, Disney and so on and so forth. And when they do, for example, I don't even know why this came to mind, but the Princess and the Frog and the Melanated Mermaid and things like this and that is not even reality. Although, the characters may represent someone of a hue that's similar to yours or mine. We're okay with some of these things, but my point is this. I touched on part one. I addressed like people who have for example the schizophrenia or whatnot. I don't know anybody that was born with that mental condition, right? Everyone that I know that suffers from that particular um, condition, it happened, later on in life. It didn't happen to them, or they didn't show any signs of um, that type of mental dysfunction, from the get go. We just say it like that, right? These are things that, as far as I know, like I said, if you know different, share it with me. But in my experience, I don't know anybody who has been that way from the beginning. You may be able to find somebody who has been labeled manic depressive or something like that, who may have showed signals that they suffer from that particular mental condition or whatnot. So what I want to touch on a little bit this evening, because I'm not going to keep y'all, is the fact that, again, generation after generation, we've watched those who, we can discuss how they came into power, but what I want to touch on is how they create these false narratives and, have our people picking one side or the other And then from that point, we begin to hate one another and fight one another, not realizing that propaganda was orchestrated, right? For example, I mention this often about the fact that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton Rodham are blood relatives, right? So why am I bringing that up again this evening? I'm bringing it up because, again, if I say they orchestrate these false narratives to get us to choose a side, and based on the side that you choose, all of a sudden me and you are into it based off of something again that they purposely purposely orchestrated in order to get the results that we see right now, right? And behind the scenes, what you don't see Bill, Hillary, and Donald Trump and his Russian or German or whatever kind of wife he has having dinner, drinking their little fancy $1,000 wines and things like this and that. You know what I'm saying? Checking their stocks and yeah, we're doing good, we're doing good. But when they get in front of that camera, they portray it as if they're at odds with one another, when that's not the truth. So again, as I rewind and go back to November of 2024 and January of 2025, and I watched so many melanated people support Donald Trump based off of whether they did it because they were tired of the Democratic Party, or whether they did it because they really feel as though Donald Trump is a stand-up guy and he's going to make changes within the administration and their business practices that are going to benefit us as a people. My point is, I'm sick and tired of us going through the same shit over and over and not recognizing the game that is being played. Meanwhile, while some of us are, you know what I'm saying, again, supporting Donald and saying things are better and they're gotten better, and there's no more recession and prices have dropped, and peace, God, peace. Thank you for tuning in. People come up under the assumption that because I don't support the orange guy, that I'm in support of, the other wing of the bird, right? If a bird is dirty, the bird is dirty. It don't matter what wing that we're talking about. And I don't want to, talk about that too much, but it's again a very important factor because, as I previously stated, a lot of people, again, they think because they're not tuning in to what they call fake news or the mainstream news, that they're getting something, or something on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or wherever, QAnon or wherever, whatever you tap into by way of this internet, that's more valuable than, again, the mainstream networks, right? I'm here to tell you, I'm seeing and have been seeing a lot of people be misled and not even recognize that they're being misled, because it's like a gumbo that's being mixed up, right? They got a little bit of truth in it and a whole lot of satire in it, and a lot of people don't know how to differentiate. Am I saying that word right? The difference in between the two. And me being for me, it's not just, I'm a little bit older, or elders looking at me and telling me, well, you're too young to, you know what I'm saying? Don't have anything to do with age. It has a lot to do with already seeing this take place and recognizing it, right, as being the same old stuff over and over again, as to where, again, most people look at it as, I always thought that, or I always knew that, or that makes a lot of sense. I'm beyond that. I'm not over and above anybody, but my thing is this: if there's no actual, if it's something that I can't prove and I can't recognize a pattern with it, then I choose to stay away from it. Again, especially when I look into it and I see um, elements within it where there's information that it pre-existed prior to that, being stirred into the pot. Like if you coming, you know what I'm saying, to the forefront with some new information, then let it be just that new information. Why are you grasping and pulling on to other strings to try to legitimize, you know what I'm saying, something that you think is true? Why you can't just go directly to the primary source of that and then broadcast it? See, shit don't work like that. That's not the way this algorithm work, with pointing out the things that, you know what I'm saying? I'm messing up the thing. Pointing out the things that um is not about what's relevant or what's true. It's about what's popular. And there are a plethora of things that are popular. You got different genres of music, you know, that release various singles that are popular. You got various television shows. You got various athletes, whether they are currently popular based off of their talent or their infamy. Is that a word? You know what I'm saying? Like these are the things that people are most interested in. So these are the topics that, you know, the average content creator sticks to talking about in order, again, to keep a following or gain more followers. And for me, it's like when I see something or hear something in particular, for instance, there's a lot of people talking about Diddy right now. Still, you know, he was denied bail again. It's a lot of people talking about Shannon Sharp, you know, being sued for a second time. And I touched on that the last time I was live, but it was a reason why I touched on it. I touched on that because there were elements within that story that haven't been spoken on. A lot of people aren't familiar again with the Tillman family. You know what I'm saying? As to where I am. You see, so certain things are being left out of the equation, right? So, with that being said, whenever I'm speaking about something that's a current event, I try to tap into it to give you a view of what's not being broadcast, right? And I will admit, when it came to the Cincinnati Brawl, I dropped the ball because I wasn't aware of everything that occurred, right? I didn't know that a foreign national, i.e., a pale skinned cat, slapped the brother who, you know, ended up being arrested and having a high bond. I didn't know that that brother was um, a popular figure within the city of Cincinnati, right? I didn't speak against any of the people who were involved in the brawl. But again, I wasn't, you know, fully versed in what had happened. But in all honesty, I don't even want to talk about that this evening. I want to talk about key elements that lead to people losing a warrior spirit and not standing up in the ways that they did, you know, in the prior era, right? Or when the prior administration was in office, or, you know, when we had a particular leader who, you know, many of us didn't mind supporting. I'm not going to say follow, I mean supporting, versus the type of support that I see, not just Trump, but other people receiving from our people who do not deserve it. And why, the reasons why, and the same reasons why a lot of people are sitting back and not participating in giving our people, uh, um, you know, coming to the forefront to discuss any type of remedy and recourse for the issues that we have as a people. Instead, for the most part, people are still fighting over whether or not those in power are, you know, are doing anything to aid or assist us, right? Which I think we can all agree, peace, God. I think we can all agree that the answer to that would be no. Um, some of my people have spoken to me about the cryptocurrency and the moves that Trump is making to make that make it more accessible. You see what I'm saying, to the general populace of so-called people in North America, right? Me myself, I'm more of a gold and silver person over the cryptocurrency, but I'm not gonna knock it just because it's not something that I've invested in. You see what I'm saying? That's not my point. My point is this: what I've seen is what I've witnessed throughout my entire life, which is no matter who you put in that Oval Office, I ain't gonna say no matter who you put, whomever they select to be the CEO of the USA Inc., what they all have in common is actually what their job is, which is to make wealthy folks wealthier, not to enhance anything in our surroundings to make life better for us, right? Now, when they get in front of that mic, they may say some things that make you feel good. They may say some things that make you feel not so good. They may say some things that upset you, but what comes out of a person's mouth has nothing to do with their actions. And as adults, these are things that, we should not just know or recall, but be able to stand on, right? And again, let me go back a little bit. Not go back with what I said, but go back to some of the things that I've been expressing um, lately on social media concerning a particular topic at hand, the warrior spirit, right? These things can, us fighting against one another, it, it's not a matter of stirring the pot. It's a matter of killing dreams and desires. Like many of us, desire to see us prosper as a people, as a unit, not on an individual basis. And what we're seeing with this current regime, if you will, is our people beginning to, not to say that it didn't exist before, but more so than ever right now, people are into their individual status, right? And don't seem to too much care about our people, again, as their own individual nation. And it's troubling because when we look at various other sovereign nations or tribes or clans, if you will, they put themselves first, right? Whatever colonist is within their territory, who they have given permission to do commerce and trade within that territory, is never the first priority. Never. Until we put corrupt leaders in place to deal with these colonists. Outside of that, those are the only people within those clans or tribes or within that nation that put business over the people, right? That allow these various pale skinned nations to have some type of top priority over the actual people. And again, we our people have already been functioning that way for a little while. So when certain platforms began to get popular with this internet, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and whatnot, originally the vibe with our people was us coming together and standing up and saying that, we are going to focus on us, right? We're going to focus on us and deal with everybody else and everything else secondary, only because we have to, not because we want to. But right now, that's not the mode. The mode right now, again, It's us fighting with us. I'm actually hearing brothers and sisters talk about we have to stop calling things racist or crying about racism or and racism doesn't exist. I never thought I would live to see the day that our people would even make them kind of statements. Like this shit is sickening. And it's spreading like a damn virus. Like you actually believe that, for example, when it comes, this is why I don't fuck with TikTok, y'all. I don't care. It's some of my own people that's on TikTok that's giving good information, right? But again, earlier today, earlier when I first started off, I mentioned this gumbo shit. And what I mean by that is you get a little bit of sprinkle of the truth, and then it gets mixed up with a whole bunch of, propaganda and satire. And if you want to call it fake news, I'm so tired of hearing the term fake news. For me, fake news is no excuse. Whatever you hear and whatever is being broadcast to you, you should be astute enough to know that you're going to have to be able, there's a must to verify the information before you get your ass in front of a camera or on a phone or on a keyboard and get to supporting it and pushing it. And for the most part, this is not what's happening. And it is killing the warrior spirit of many of us. A lot of times when it comes to social media, I become dormant because I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out with trying to be consistent on bringing information that we need to have versus me addressing all the pseudo information, because it gets to be too much. And I see people who come from what we refer to as the grassroots movements sharing shit that's not true, or that's 5% true and 95% untrue. And it lets me know that they're not researching. They just picking up a TikTok video, right? Or they just watched again a YouTuber or a TikToker, say a bunch of vainglorious things about various politicians or certain companies or certain policies, and they haven't vetted that information. And it just pisses me off. I'm just telling you what it is, because what that does is it doesn't just kill the credibility of these movements or what used to be a movement, because right now none of this shit is moving nowhere. It's not. It's just a discussion. It's a propaganda tool that's intentionally orchestrated, again, because last time I checked, none of us don't own TikTok. None of us have ownership of YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, right? But we own there, and we soaking up certain information like a sponge, right? So when people try to bring me information and I know it's fraudulent, right? And I make my attempts to check it, people get mad at me and want to hate me. And I'm talking about, again, some of these individuals are people who, prior to certain agendas becoming popularized, right? And the usage of what we call an algorithm, people following it. Prior to that, we didn't have no issues, right? But the minute I point out the fact that, hey, that statement or that video you just made, that information comes from dot, 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 you know what I'm saying? And it was orchestrated and blah, blah, blah. Then it's like, I'm the problem. How am I the problem? Because this is not a matter of, this is a matter of me being critical, but this is not a matter of me criticizing my own people. This is a matter of me trying to save your credibility. Now, you got to look at both sides of the coin. Let's examine, we know what the purpose of these colonists spending, if you want to call it money, in order to create these false narratives, knowing that people who don't have access to certain information, or people who are kind of lazy, today is not, if you want to hide something from a black person, or a so-called black person, you put it in the book and all of that. No, because at this current time, people have ebooks inscribed, and no, you know what I'm saying? That's not the point right now. There are more books on the market that even have this fake information in it. So that's not it. That's not it. What matters is, what is the primary source of that information that you are spewing? Where did you get it from? And who is the author? See, most of the shit that our people online are talking about and arguing about, we aren't the authors. But y'all be the first to try to authorize or legitimize some information that's only going to cause friction amongst us. And what I'm saying to you is, this has been done multiple times. It's a repeat. It's a repeat. And a lot of my people are comfortable with this selective memory that they have, or this, I only care about me and mine. And when I talk about this is when the people follow and donate, and I get the views, and I get the YouTube check, and the so on and so forth, which further not just stagnates us from getting to where we're trying to go. I mean, at that point, you're just saying you don't care. And again, this is this individual shit. This is that death of the warrior spirit, because in prior years, a lot of these brothers and sisters wasn't functioning that way, right? The things that I see a lot of people promoting right now, they wasn't doing that. They wasn't into this type of stuff some years ago. But now, currently, they are. And it just be burning me up, because in some cases, I'm not going to say in most cases, but in some cases, they know what I know. But again, they don't care enough about the people to, or, they don't want to humble themselves to even admit that they made a mistake. See, if I say something, and I learned this a long time ago, if I misrepresent some information and I come to find out that it was incorrect, I absolutely have no problem with rectifying the situation by way of, if I have to get on YouTube and say, look, y'all, I thought that such and such and such and such, for example, were cousins, and they're not. Or I thought that this particular holistic remedy, was a scam, and it's not. It actually works. Whatever it is, that's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to rectify, or anything that I may have misled anybody on. It's my responsibility to correct these things. So this is this actually is the only statement that I made on Facebook today, 48 minutes ago. I said the invaders have always worked in unison and orchestrated false narratives to get us to hate one another and fight against our own best interests. And if I had to sum up this live right now, that would be the perfect statement. But again, my biggest point of contention is the fact that they've done this shit for centuries. So again, here in 2025, to see my people doing the same stuff again is very disheartening. Very disheartening. We watched, I ain't gonna say we watched because, we weren't here, but based on the historical records, we know of of a particular time where Martin Luther King and Malcolm X wasn't in agreement about many things. But as they began to be around or have time with one another more, they began to over and understand the moves that they both chose, right? And with that being said, they were able to learn from one another. Should I say that again? They were able to learn from one another. And until we get back to that, as to where we can dialogue and I can learn some stuff from you that I wasn't aware of, and vice versa, we gonna be stuck like Chuck. There's no way to get out of a hole when we both in a hole and you got 2 and 3 people that think they know every damn thing. But everything that they are trying has yet to benefit us as a whole, let alone it may benefit them a little bit, you see. But let's get back to this because this is new to me. I ain't gonna say it's new because we have our what's his name, Clarence Williams or whatever the hell his name, Clarence, I don't know right now, right? But we have quite a few melanated people who are pushing this far as a narrative of we have got to stop calling people racist or talking about racism because it really don't exist, or we not affected by racism. Like what you smoking? What are you smoking? And this is what I mean when I talk about this individual stuff. You feel as though because your life may be so grand and great, and both of your next door neighbors are of European descent or whatnot. You see what I'm saying? And they don't call you the N-word, and sometimes they may water your grass for you and pet your dog or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? That, oh, there's no such thing as racism, right? My bank account look good. My 401k is intact. I got this much Bitcoin. I have a trust fund put together for my children, and it was, so-called pale skin people who put me up on it. My attorney, you know what I'm saying, is Eurasian or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Y'all need to stop all this. Let me explain something to you. The people who we know for a fact are racist as can be look at you no differently than they look at the rest of us, right? If an individual, if a pale skinned person is in power, they don't care about how much money you got. They don't even care about how many degrees or doctorates that you may have. They still see you as one of them. So these claims about, we got to stop calling people racist and all that. Are you crazy? Now, I could say, do you know that there are still sundown towns? Really, that's not the racism that I'm touching on. I'm talking about the structure of this so-called of their God, governmental ordinance department, if you will, right? The structure of it, the creation of it, the organic instruments that were used or documents that were used to construct it were put together, understand, to make sure that we weren't ever meant to be in it or prosper from it, right? You're talking about in a day and age back then where some of us already had our own. Those who hadn't been hit over the head and kidnapped, right? And added into their system in order to build generational wealth for them. Currently, again, so let's fast forward 2025. A lot of us, or some of us, I'm not going to say a lot, are up under the who actually believe that this is not the system. It's actually our people who don't want to do right, right? The system is perfectly set up for everybody to be able to prosper, because you have people that come over here from less fortunate nations, or as they would like to say, third world countries or whatever, and they come over here and they do just fine. So again, us leaning on the crutch of racism in this day and age it don't make sense, or it's asinine, if you will, right? Ignoring the fact that the policies on an annual basis that they put in play are no different than the ones that they put in play a century ago or 2 centuries ago, right? We talk about the abolishment of certain so-called acts and codes that were blatantly racist, right? Not realizing that these people don't abolish anything, right? They've done modifications to things, or what some people would like to refer to as an amendment, right? That is very different than abolishment. They're actually on opposite sides of the spectrum, if you will. They are not the same. And when you look at it from a logical point of view, you have to say, if put yourself in their shoes, right? If putting together a bunch of policies is the very reason that you're wealthy as hell, your friends are wealthy as hell, you're able to leave wealth for your heirs and descendants, would you be willing to change that structure in order to uplift those who maybe your generation didn't oppress, but your forefathers and foremothers oppressed them? In most cases, the answer will be no. I would not be willing, or they would not be willing to rectify the destruction that was caused by way of these particular policies. But what we can do is make some adjustments, make some modifications to try and leave a little bit of wiggle room for those who are able to squeeze through the cracks and be able to benefit from that little bit of wiggle room that we're going to give, right? And then what we'll do is, in another 4 years, when we have another administration come in, we can have them remove that little bit of wiggle room that we allowed these people to squeeze through the tracks to get in. And then 4 years later, when another administration comes in, we'll open up those cracks just a little bit for a small amount of time, right? And then another 4 years, when the next administration comes in, we'll close that gap, right? I've literally watched them do this shit my whole fucking life. So again, pardon my French, but when I see the incompetence of, for an example, here in the city of Detroit, brother Trick, Mr. Mathis, if you will, and I ain't talking about Judge Mathis, get on that mic and tell the people to go fucking vote for Trump, right? Somebody got a check for that shit. If you didn't get a check, nigga, and I'm gonna say this to you, I don't give a fuck who replayed it for you. You are the dumbest motherfucker in the city, right? No different than if he had got up on that mic and said, I want everybody in the city of Detroit to vote for Kamala Harris, right? Is either wing of the bird. They're both flapping the bird to go in a particular direction, and it is not in the direction of balancing the books and cutting the checks to who they owe, which is us. This shit is real ridiculous, right? I've seen so much. I actually seen a post where there is a homosexual European man, and he is going in about how Trump is so great, and how Biden was a clown. And I'm seeing melanated people share this, and I watched the video because somebody sent it to me, right? And I looked at it, and my response was 90% of everything that this guy just said in this video is false. So based off of, how can somebody who claims to be a scholar look at some footage where 90% of everything being said in it is false, and then turn around and make the decision to promote it as if, and again, people with big names, when y'all do this, when you make the decision to promote something that has 90% false information in it, your followers are going to follow you. Me, I'm going to call your ass out, right? I'm going to call you out. This fear, you know what I'm saying? Let me back up. These type of actions are the reason why some of us lose that warrior spirit, right? And we no longer want to come together and congregate with the people to come up with resolution and remedy to aid us in doing what we need to do to get to where we need to go in order to make sure that the books are balanced. This is what I'm looking for, right? Now, if those in power refuse to balance the books and pay us what we owe, what they owe us, we have no business supporting them. Period. But again, we've seen Oreos time after time, right? Clarence Thomas, what I call him earlier, I called him Clarence Williams or something like that. We see for example, I'm looking at a video right now. I don't know the woman's name. She's a fashion designer. She do like evil stuff or whatever. And you see a multitude of these melanated celebrities supporting her, taking pictures with her, wearing her clothing or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And these are the individuals that many of us look to say that, see, no racism exists. That person's a billionaire. That person's a multimillionaire, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, when we look at it again, if as a people, if we make up 13-14% of the population of this nation, then by all right, we should hold 13 to 14% of the nation's wealth. And we do not. So when we start talking about the consumerism and us being the biggest consumers of this, that, and the third, I would have to disagree. If you can show me the stats that say that so-called black people are the people who buy the most Louis Vuitton, we're the people who buy the most Gucci, you know what I'm saying? We're the people who buy the most this and buy the most that. Again, if we only hold 1.5 to 2% of the nation's wealth, how could we afford to do such a thing? See, shit has to make sense in order for me to put my stamp on it. If the numbers don't match up, then the shit ain't true, right? I'm not saying we don't. But every melanated person that you see running around with Gucci on, a lot of times, or sometimes that should be knockoff. Let's keep it a buck. I'm not saying all times. Y'all know that some of the celebrities, since they done been busted, be wearing fake jewelry and, you know what I'm saying, fake brand name labels or whatnot, right? So if I can't even afford to buy the real this or the real that, what would make you think that we would be able to afford to be the number one people that purchase these high scale brand names? I assure you that if you are on Rodeo, right, and you go inside of one of these high-end stores, We don't make up a high percentage of the people who shop there. I guarantee you that. They don't put Gucci stores in Giorgio Armani stores, you know what I'm saying, in certain places throughout Beverly Hills in order to uh advertise to melanated people, right? Because we're not a high percentage of the people who live in those areas. We exist there, but we are outnumbered there. So when you come somewhere where we make up the majority of the population within some of these inner cities, you don't, at least in Detroit, right? This is one of the only cities where if I want to go to Red Lobster, I got to go outside of Detroit somewhere to a suburbs. There is no Red Lobster anywhere inside of the city of Detroit. And it is a reason for that. But soon, mark my words, unless we repopulate the city and find a way to reverse the gentrification, peace goddess, peace empress, if we don't begin to do that the way, it was done before, you won't see that. But again, based upon the fact that we had a drop in population due to the bankruptcy of the city, right? The others, begin to come back here, you see, and buy up anything that they could buy up. And that's what they're doing. But again, my concerns lie where they lie at. The pushing of the false narratives, there's no racism. We need to stop talking about racism, and like, that's crazy. So you saying it don't exist? And the support of the, what y'all call them, the conservatives. So let's look at what I had to say about that, right? I said cuff, KCUF, cuff liberals and conservatives. It's like picking in between being a house or field N-word in 2025. I'd never be either. It's freedom or death for the invader. So to me, when I see my people running around saying, well, the liberals are the problem, you know what I'm saying? So being that the liberals are the problem, I'm going to support the Republican Party and Donald Trump and them because they're the conservatives. So you labeled yourself as a conservative, or vice versa. You say, well, I don't like, the agendas and the policies that the conservatives, have put on the table, or, the executive orders that they have made. So I'm going to support the liberals. Again, this is akin to you saying, I'd rather be a house N-word over a field N-word, or I'd rather be a field N-word over a house. It's the same thing. When you start talking that I'm a liberal or I'm a conservative, you just chose to, it's no different. You might as well say, well, I'm a house Negro or I'm a field Negro. I'm telling you what it is. You are still, either way it go, you are participating in them holding on to wealth, in them, who I'm talking about when I say them making themselves wealthier, all the while going against the grain of progress or the best interest of your own people. Because again, this current era consists of this individual status. You're more concerned with your individual status, so you don't see racism. But again, just like I previously stated, they don't see you no different than how they see me or the rest of us. It's just like the OJ shit. He said he not black, he's OJ. Well, he fucked around and found out. You see, his status And you know what I'm saying? Hit the like for me, y'all. His status got him out of that conviction of murder for his wife, right? But it did not save him ultimately from going to prison. It did not. And again, these various celebrities who, like some of y'all, are beginning to think there's no racism and I'm me. I'm not a color. I'm this. Yeah, I'm not a color either. You see? But that ain't how they see me. They very well see me the same way they see y'all, as a color. That's why we have this big issue with deprivation of rights under the color of law, which seems to always be projected upon us. Again, because that cop, you see what I'm saying? He sees you no different. He sees Ice Cube no different than he sees you or I. And Ice Cube is a multimillionaire, right? On the side of that road is no different. No different than inside of that Oval Office is going to be the same thing. So I do not support, I just can't, y'all. I have no tolerance for that type of talk, because you sound crazy. Really, you just sound crazy. Again, for me, the picking of a Democratic Party or a Republican Party, or the choosing to be a liberal or the choosing to be a conservative, again, it's no different than choosing to be a house or a field Negro. It's the same shit. You going into venues feeling as though you belong there and you're being accepted based on the fact that you got this degree, you got that doctorate, you are a millionaire, you own multiple businesses and whatnot. As if, again, I'm not black, I'm OJ. Same thing. And again, like I said the other day, there are neo-Nazi skinhead, KKK loving pricks on both wings of the bird, liberal and conservative. It's asinine as fuck to think otherwise. Do I need to repeat that? There are neo-Nazi skinhead, KKK loving pricks on both wings of the bird, liberal and conservative. And it's asinine for you to think otherwise. So I'm not going to say if this is a true statement. This is an absolute true statement. And being that it's an absolute true statement, what make you think that it is acceptable for you to choose one of those arms of the bird? And again, this is a repeat. I just spoke about how when you have one administration, you know what I'm saying, in the Oval Office, they'll open up a little crack for us to squeeze through, you understand, to get some air and be able to prosper. And then 4 years later, a different administration comes in and they close that gap. And then 4 years later, this administration comes in and opens the gap just a little bit, for a few of us to slide in through the crack. And then the next administration closes the gap. This has been a cycle that has been repeated over and over and over and over again. And I don't have that type of amnesia. I don't have that type of selective memory or any other terminology that you can use to in that particular scenario. I've seen it too many times, right? We could talk about Biden and Bill Clinton with the crime bill, right? We can talk about Ronald Reagan. We can talk about Obama. We can talk about all of these people, but let's deal with the common denominator within it. There are quite a few, but the number one common denominator is the fact that these people are related by way of blood, not just by being politicians. First and foremost, they are a bloodline. And with that being said, if me and my cousins and uncles and aunties and my grandma, my great grandma, we just say something everybody's familiar with. We own Kroger's, right? We're not going to let other people come in and claim ownership. We may let you work at the motherfucking Kroger, but we're not letting you come in and get into the executive branch and run shit. We may let you come in, at the judicial end of it, or even at the legislative end on it. But when it comes to being an exec, this is bloodline only, right? So this gives way to the fact that, again, every single president that has sat in that Oval Office minus one, and I don't know how, you know what I'm saying? I don't, at this point, I would like to go back and examine that one president who's not a part of that bloodline. And I'm going to tell you how the grassroots and beyond the grassroots conscious community dealt with that. We knew that all of these presidents were related to one another. But the one who people will always say was not a blood relative was John F. Kennedy. And we were wrong. It was not John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy is a part of the bloodline. So sitting here in 2016 and 2020 and 2025, we have some scholars from the grassroots movements who say that they support Trump because Trump is not a part of the bloodline. And that is absolutely false. He is a part of that same bloodline coming, even though he's German, right? And I shouldn't even say even though he's German, because when you look at the so-called European royal family of the King Charles and such and so on, and Prince Andrew and all, he's in direct lineage with those people. So anytime you hear any of these scholars say otherwise, give them my phone number. Let's do that. You don't even have to do that, right? The whole thing is either you are going to thoroughly research the information that you give, or your check is so big that you don't care, right? You need to label your information as being for entertainment purposes only, because there's nothing educational about teaching or professing things that are false. Regardless, maybe your intent is not to mislead people, but you are misleading people. You are causing people to lose their warrior spirit. You're causing people to step back and step away from a community that used to flourish, right? And you're also ruining the credibility of these said movements that were in existence before you showed your face or opened your mouth. And if I did not care, I wouldn't say shit. But due to the fact that I do care, because I'm seeing the destruction, we already had a massive amount of stagnation based off of not just fear, but lack of funding for even sometimes simple events that we were trying to put together, right? Where at times we would have certain celebrities either secretly send a few thousand or be in the front and be like, I support this, based off of what they have experienced dealing in the arena of entertainment and seeing who the execs are. It don't be us. It doesn't, it's not anyone who looks like them who are responsible for cutting the checks. It doesn't be anyone who shares the same hue as them who are holding on to the masters and the publishing and actually owns this state of art studio. And you see what I'm saying? For example, the Oprah Winfrey's and the Tyler Perry's are very few. They make up less than 1% of that industry. And it's sad because not because of how small in numbers that we are when it comes to having control over the resources or whatnot or ownership, but when you look at the very few who did become successful enough to, you know, have some of these things, most of them have done what we call kiss the ring, right? Meaning that when it comes to, for example, somebody like a Tyler Perry, where he produces, hold up, y'all, fucking fly. He's limited, right? He's limited with creating or directing something or producing something that's of substance to us, right? So this is why you see uh the same stuff over and over again. And you like, well, we tired of that because that representation of us as a people, like, we want to see something else because we are um we have some better representations of us in our communities, right? We have some community leaders who are worthy of having their stories told, right? Or even when it comes to fiction based film and music, we can do better. But again, we see what the mainstream media pushes. And at this point in time, we do realize that it's intentional. It's not just because, oh, these particular type of films or this particular genre of music is the one that is the money maker. No, they made it the money maker. If they're only going to fund and promote certain images in a certain type of energy, it's not because that's necessarily what people want to see or hear. It's just that that's all that you've made accessible in mass. So again, excuse me, y'all. I meant to be sleepy. That's why I ain't on camera. I got my pajamas on. But we have to start closely examining everybody and everything. I'm an open book, so to speak. Like, I don't put everything, you know what I'm saying, out there that's going on in my personal life. But, you know, I'm not sitting up throwing bones in the closet. Life hasn't been perfect and it hasn't been all of a struggle. You see, if everything is perfect, I'm trying to kill a fly. I can't believe. Oh my God. If everything is perfect, then you don't have those experiences that test you, right? Then if everything is all bad, you know, a lot of those people end up severely depressed and you know being mentally unstable. We'll just put it that way. And poverty is one of the things that causes mental instability, if you will, if that's a damn word. Yeah, it will cause that. So for me, what we have to focus on, what causes poverty. What you will not do is try and convince me that people like living in poverty or people chose to live that way. I know that's not the case. Yes, people make poor choices, right? And many of us have examples of or influences or influenced by people who made poor choices. Some people unfortunately don't even know that there are other options available. But again, when you have this administration open up a gap and this administration comes in and closes the gap, right? And while they're closing the gap, let's not forget that they are making the wealthy wealthier. That type of greed and that type of power, it hurts. It hurts us. It has hurt us. Right? And I don't like the delusions that, some of us live in based off of an individual basis. I can point out a lot of people within my own bloodline who were very successful, right? Very successful. But what about the rest of the family? I'm not up under the illusion that we all could have did as well as my maternal grandfather did, right? There were particular policies in place that allowed him to do some things that even, and this is, just think about it, this is 50 and 60 years ago. You see, these particular policies no longer, they have been modified to squeeze us out, right? The particular industries that really needed people with particular trade skills in order for it to prosper, those skills are no longer needed. Or that industry no longer exists, because it's not just all about the government and their policies and things that they put forth in order to and we'll say help, handouts and help, and people will look at you crazy like, well, y'all always begging for stuff. And hold on. The government was put in place to handle certain affairs on the behalf of the people, not to dictate who gets certain privileges and who does not to dictate who has rights and who doesn't have rights. But this is exactly what they've done. There is a way to, for an example, stuff can be real simple. I can take billions or trillions of dollars and put them in a particular area, right? And tell the people, this is where it's at. All you have to do is, prove that you are who you say you are, and those funds were put there for you. But when we say something like that pertaining to us as a people, it's always, oh, y'all begging and looking for a handout and welfare and food stamps, and you know what I'm saying? Like, no, no, it's not the case. If you are what the trustee, and I'm the beneficiary, right? Or you the fiduciary, and I'm the beneficiary. You have a job to do, and if you are using your power in order to make wealthy people wealthier, and we as a people don't see a problem with that, because we like, well, if I was in that position, I look out for my people too. The problem is the resources that they using to do this shit is don't belong to them. The misconduct and the mismanagement that is taking place is unacceptable. But if the people aren't coming together to prevent that, and our people are coming together to support their agendas and their leaders, then how you think we look to the people on an international basis? We look crazy. And again, I'm gonna end it on this note. Hit the like for me, y'all, please. These are some of the situations that make people just chill out, right? Just chill out. They're no longer the warriors that they used to be, because they see people actions not matching their words. They see people supporting or repeating a cycle that has never benefited us as a people. It's just, it only has further stagnated us as a people. And again, I've already expressed the fact that as far back as I can remember, I've seen this behavior by, it don't matter which administration it is who sits in that Oval Office, right? Or that Congress. You see what I'm saying? Or the Senate. They make the same exact moves. And even when they bump heads on things, guess what? They still are not living in a poverty situation. They still getting the big checks and the benefits, regardless to whether they agree or disagree. They still are living a life as to where they're not living paycheck to paycheck, right? They don't have to rob Peter to pay Paul. They're not worried about property tax and sales tax and the highway men extorting them and assaulting them and kidnapping them and holding them for ransom. They're not worried about any of those things. They can make one phone call and rectify a whole lot, as to where I have to go and empty out my bank account to make certain corrections. So for those that don't have a problem with that, I have a problem with you. Guaranteed I do. So with that being said, we're going to end it on that note. Again, I want to try at least Monday through Friday, try to get on here at least once a day, 2, 3, 10, 4 times a day. Right now, today I need to catch up on my sleep. And, I'll gather some particulars and, put them up on the screen. That way you can look them up yourself, various templates. I'll be using those as well throughout the week. And various news articles or whatnot that are legitimate peer review type stuff as to where this particular network or platform is not going to say this, that, and the third, because they will be held liable. Unlike some of these people who just be on here spewing any damn thing, knowing that they don't have to be liable and really don't care about their credibility, right? We're trying to put an end to that, and we're trying to put an end to these gender wars, because our men and women bumping heads, that's not what we need right now. We need to be working together and reestablishing some things so that we can move forward and move away from their house that many of us, will always say their house is crumbling and this is the end and all. Nope. I ain't even worried about whether or not their house is crumbling. I'm worried about us building our own house. The same way the other nations within side of a nation, whether we're talking about a Apache, a Chippewa, or whatever we're talking about, Kitawa, Washita, whoever it is, that's where we need to be in order to regain our sovereignty and our estates as a nation of people. That's where my concern is. That's where it's going to be. And I'm going to say peace.
Supreme.
Shock.
They say I'm dope, I said I'm smoke, fire, blowing air, carbon, earth, solid, water, wet. I'm steady beat, a sister soldier that dies effects. So gone with all that hoopla and rah-rah, unless you talking about Atun, Namuna, Amara, pineal glands, all seeing eyes. We call the third eye, we came to build, not pay your bill. Slam municipality, city seals like roadkill, descendants of ancient mound builders. Not supposed to need encyclopedias, genetically encoded with 720. We got amnesia, claiming we Christian cretins in love with Yahweh, Muhammad, and Jesus, but you was living inside of God when you was a fetus. But believers and never believers, non-believers, cause we don't be lying, shaking hands and taking oaths.